It's obvious we cannot study all the details of the difficult 22-chapter book.
Hello, welcome everybody to another episode of Ask Me Anything. If you're watching this right now, it's because you're a part of this ministry with us.
All right, welcome back to Cultish, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeremiah Roberts, one of the co-hosts here.
The way in which we are to reason with the unbeliever in the following ways. Number one, we want to demonstrate ignorance in the unbeliever, okay? Number two, we want to highlight the fact that, like the scripture says, the unbeliever knows God. And then thirdly, Dr. Bonson suggests that we demand total philosophical renovation, an entire worldview shift and change as we call the unbeliever to repentance. And of course, this is going to be the work of proclaiming the truth along with the power of the Spirit working in the hearts of the individual. But we call for an entire worldview change, so to speak.
The church is filled throughout our history, with Jews and Gentiles who believe in Jesus, and they are the true Israel.
Loving your wife as Christ loved the church means you pour into her by pouring over her the truth of God's word.
You have to come and take up your cross and die, or don't come. That's how Jesus says it. And then everyone leaves.
I think there can be masculinity in like a female and a man.
I would say to this that masculinity is something that is both caught and taught, right? There are biological realities built into the world. There's differences between the sexes and that these are good. But then I would also say that there is a guiding vision and ethical system that determines whether masculinity exercised will be virtuous or destructive.
What's important to note, just from a biblical perspective, when you listen to Andrew Tate's description of the Christian faith, his understanding of the Christian faith, you really begin to understand that Andrew Tate never was a Christian. He never understood the Christian faith.
Hey, welcome back to Revealed Apologetics. I'm your host, Eli Ayala, and today we're going to be taking a look at the popular encyclopedia of apologetics, surveying the evidence for the truth of Christianity.
The covenant of redemption, right? This isn't the same thing as the covenant of grace. It's not the same thing as any other covenant in Scripture. So the covenant of redemption is the foundation.
For most people, their finances aren't one big problem. It's 100 small ones. A retirement account from a job 5 years ago. A budget that lives in your head, but never on paper. Life insurance that you meant to look into. A will half finished or not even started. And the longer you leave those loose ends untied, the harder it becomes to move forward with peace of mind. At Dominion Wealth, we walk with you step by step to help you tie it all together. We meet you where you are. We listen. We get your financial picture out of your head and into practice. Then we build a strategy to meet your needs now, prepare for your future, and bless the next generation. We don't pressure you. We give biblical, honest guidance. Let the strategy follow your values and help find the right solutions. If your financial path feels uncertain, let's get together one-on-one and get you on the right track. Book a free consultation today. We are here to help you get your finances in order so you can feel confident about the future. From baptism to burial, Dominion's got you covered. You can find us at reform.money.
I would say if the authorities didn't want us involved in the public square, they ought not to have crucified Jesus in the public square.
Use humanistic principles.
Well, I would say
the same idea.
I would say
same
that.
end.
I would say, what's the problem with stardust bumping into stardust?
In the cosmic picture, no, there's no problem. In the cosmic picture, it won't matter.
No, Mr. President, you are not protecting reproductive freedom. You are authorizing the destruction of freedom for 1 million little human beings every year.
I'm sorry, my friends, but I am tired of seeing Jesus presented as a weak beggar. He is a powerful Savior, and the gospel is not a suggestion, it is a command. Reverend Mulder, don't you sympathize with that? I sympathize with every single human heart wishing to know the one true and living God, but I believe there's only one way that can happen, through Jesus Christ, and the gospel is about repenting of sin, not celebrating it.
Right now, you're on the threshold of an amazing adventure. We will explore the spiritual abyss. You have not experienced this before. You're gonna love it.
Many are my persecutors and my adversaries, but I do not swerve from your testimonies. I look at the faithless with disgust, because they do not keep your commands. Consider how I love your precepts. Give me life according to your steadfast love. The sum of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous rules endures forever. There's really just no way out of that, is there, Luke? Every one of your righteous rules endures forever.
Nope.
Hashtag theonomy.
No way out.
That's, I mean, what are you going to do with that? Psalm 119. It's just in your Bible, and read the whole thing. I mean, it'll take you a little while. Psalm 119. All about God's law, the blessing of God's law and God's precepts. Every one of your righteous rules endures forever. What's up, everybody? This is Apologia Radio, the gospel heard around the world. So grateful you joined us. I'm Jeff the Coleman Ninja. That's Luke the Bear right there.
What up?
You can get more at apologiastudios.com. That's APOLOGIA, apologiastudios.com. Please do go to apologiastudios.com. Get a hold of all the past episodes of Apologia Radio, Cultish, Theologians, Provoked. Everything is there for your listening pleasure. And also, if you can, today, sign up for All Access. We have so much more coming for you right now. New tools being added, new programs. Everything is coming to Apologia Studios. Sign up for All Access. You make everything we do possible. So if you've benefited from the evangelism videos, the on-the-street ministry, the public debates, the teaching ministry of Apologia, go there at apologiastudios.com. Get All Access. We have more coming for you, including this month. I want to inform you guys, this month we have Bonson U. And we have a very special live event happening for Bonson U, and that is with our buddy, our good friend, the man we love, Eli Ayala. He's going to be doing something for Bonson U, June 29th, 8 p.m. Eastern, live Q&A with Eli. Super grateful for that. Only on All Access. And so sign up for All Access. We're going to have more stuff just like that coming. And that brings me also to one more thing before we get started today. Go to apologiastudios.com/give. Help us to get to our funding goal. First fundraiser for Apologia Studios in our history like this. We are upgrading everything with the programs, with the engagement, cultural engagement, new tools for the website, new programs, upgrades to everything, tools, app, all that is coming for you guys. So help us get there, apologiastudios.com/give. Again, if you've benefited from this ministry, if this ministry is a blessing to you and your family and to your church, help us to get to that funding goal. We want to have a dramatic impact on the world for the kingdom of Christ. And so get us there as quickly as possible. Help us to get there so we can get to work and add all these things for you. All right. So important moment we're in right now for sure. Not sure if many of you guys got to see the Babylon, not the Babylon Bee, not the Bee, their news side, shared yesterday. The official rape gang report is here. Nothing can prepare you for it. And let me tell you, if you haven't seen it, you need to go read that. It's on Not the Bee. It is horrific. 250,000 young white girls, 87% of rape gang convictions, distinctively Muslim names. The betrayal was total. And so this is it's a terrible moment that we are in for sure. Heartbreaking things, disturbing things. So we're going to play some of the details from Rupert Lowe's report on this in a moment. And we're also going to talk about the incident that happened or occurred in Belfast. We have so many Christians that we love and churches that we love, and we've served in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and so we love that. We love those countries. We love these people, and so it's heartbreaking to see that. And so we're also joined by Nathan Anderson today, Andrew Sandlin. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks very much, brother.
Oh, and you know, having you on just for that delicious accent makes it all worth it, Nathan. All right, so we have so much to go through. I know Andrew has limited time today, but we want to get some of his wisdom on this. Let's go ahead and play, if we could, guys. Let's open up with The report, this is Rupert Lowe, he dropped on his X account, in Parliament reading the testimonies of rape gang survivors provided to our inquiry. I want to forewarn you. I want to forewarn you about this episode. We are going to be talking about things on this episode that are probably too heavy to carry for your children.
Yeah.
And so I strongly advise you and urge you to turn it down. Make sure your children aren't hearing this on full blast. This is not something your children need to listen to. And so we're going to go ahead and play through this. That's just your warning. Please do not play this episode in front of young children. Again, the subject matter and the content is just too heavy for them to carry. And so here we go. Let's jump right into hearing some of this report.
Who signed the petition to make this debate possible. And I want to welcome these brave survivors who are sitting behind us in the hall. This debate is about them. As you quite rightly say, it's not about politics. I want the world to hear what we heard during the 2 weeks of our independent rape gang inquiry hearings, an inquiry that should never have needed to happen. I sincerely urge this Parliament to listen to the testimonies from these brave survivors and to act, to finally act. So the first testimony, he took his pants down, penetrated me, had sex with me. He then stopped before ejaculation. He picked up the bottle of Jack Daniels, which was now empty, and he forced it up inside me. He broke the glass while he was there. At that point, I was about 12, nearly 13. Another testimony. I was held down by the men as they each took turns to orally and vaginally rape me, taking it in turns to pin down my arms and my legs. When the assault ended, the men hit me repeatedly, threatened to find me, kill me, and harmed my loved ones if I ever told anybody what had happened. Another. Comments were constantly made suggesting that white girls, the Christian girls, were viewed as having fewer morals or lower values, whereas Muslim girls were described by some of the men as having dignity and higher moral standing. These comparisons were used to justify the way I was treated and to further humiliate and control me. Another. She was a white woman herself, who I imagine may have been groomed, and has obviously now married into the family, shouting obscenities at us. Throughout the whole sentencing, she was constantly saying, "Fucking liars, lying white bitches." She said to me that God will be the witness for what happens to me. Another. Race did play a part and motivated the selection or demographic of the victims. Throughout my exploitation, the other girls I encountered or who were abused alongside me were almost exclusively white. Another. She had a baby by him, and his dad was an imam. His dad knew. And he got his son married and said that he wasn't allowed to see the child. They look after their own community. Another. Over the course of the abuse, I was raped by multiple police officers in different parts of the country. Another. He put a cigarette out on the baby's face. Another. It started when I was 13. I was raped by probably about 600 or 700 different men over 3 years. Another. They would toot the horn of the car, and then a child would be taken to the front door by a staff member of the children's home. Another. I was bleeding from both my vagina and my back passage and was so swollen I could not sit down. I told hospital staff my drink had been spiked and I did not know what had happened because I was too afraid to tell the truth. They did not ask any questions. They gave me tablets and discharged me. I was 15 years old. Another. Things would escalate around Eid and holidays. Parties got bigger, got worse, got more violent. More people involved, more girls involved. The parties were just bigger. Another. The main clash that I kind of had with the religion side of it was I grew up as a Christian. I would wear my cross because it was something really special to me. It was just used as a way to break me down. They said, Where is your God now? Has your God forsaken you? Another, it was all of the white girls in every home that I went to. I remember a man opening the back of a van, and I saw 15, 20 girls locked in dog cages. Another, dogs were brought in, and I couldn't move at all. I had nowhere to move. I think that was the scariest thing, was not having any concept of it. There were men around me, not horrified, not disgusted, not helping, but filming and laughing, making bets on whether the dog could actually rape me or not. And yes, I was raped by a dog. The man just held my face, stared me down straight in the eyes, and he wanted to see me break, and he did.
So I'm not going to sanitize any of that. I know that that's an assault on your mind and your heart, and it is horrific and abominable. But these are injustices and evils that have to be addressed, and we have to put it in the light, expose the darkness and expose the wickedness. And I'm not going to sanitize it. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to help these men hide these sorts of things, and so you're going to get it full strength. So just quickly here, from the report from Not the Bee. First point, the number of raped and trafficked British girls is in the hundreds of thousands. From the report, the scale of the crimes committed is staggering. It has been previously established that at the very least, 250,000 young white girls have been subjected to repeated rape, gang rape, trafficking, torture, pregnancy, forced Islamic conversion, and lifelong trauma. The true number is probably higher. Number two, the attackers are overwhelmingly Muslim foreigners. From the report, in court records and official inquiries, around 87% of these convicted in these group-based child sexual exploitation cases bore distinctively Muslim names. The vast majority of men involved in these gangs were not convicted. And next, third.
One thing to note about that percentage of convictions is that they were purposely not going after Muslims.
Purposely not going after Muslims.
So the rate of Muslims is probably far higher.
Yeah, Gabe, I'd love you to participate in this. Turn your mic up a little bit. It's kind of low. The problem, number three, the problem is geographically widespread, affecting all corners of the nation. And four, the rape gangs started more than 50 years ago. Five, authorities purposefully and willfully ignored the mass abuse. That's the accusation. And six, victim testimony is overwhelming, as you just heard. And number seven, the whistleblowers were silenced and threatened with seizure of their assets and their careers. And so that's the report. Again, I highly encourage you. It's horrible to think about and to view, of course, but go check out that article from Not the Bee. It's on their Facebook page and across their social media platforms. All that is there. You can watch the original video there of what took place before Parliament and Rupert Lowe. But so we're going to start there. We're going to talk about the Belfast thing here. But let me just start. Let me go first to Nathan and then to Andrew. Nathan, what are you feeling right now? What are the people in the UK feeling right now? What are the churches feeling right now? And as a result of course, this report coming out, things you already knew that were happening in the UK, and then also what occurred recently in Belfast. And I'd like to turn after that to Andrew.
Well, thank you, guys. Look, Northern Ireland and the people of the UK are coming to the point of breaking. I think what we saw, what is being ignored, and consistently being ignored, is the problem of immigration. Right? It's just being swept under the carpet, and I suppose the way I see it is that we have a cycle of lawlessness, and it starts at the top. It starts with the government, which is not upholding the law in terms of, as we see here, the local governance was not upholding the law. We're seeing a failure to police borders, which then creates tension on the ground. A police force that is apparently two-tiered, and then people are then saying this is unjust. Some people are lashing out. Lawlessness again. And then the media focuses on the riots, but not the cause of the riots. and then throws money at pro-immigration groups, and to try and campaign to sort of have a peace-saving approach, and let's have good relations between the different races and communities. And then it goes quiet for a time, and then something else happens, and the cycle continues. So there's the cycle of lawlessness, and until the law bearer takes up the sword of justice and applies that from its own, applies it in law, and applies it then directly through and justly and impartially throughout the whole system, the cycle of lawlessness is going to continue. Now, in terms of the church, I think what is sad is that the churches were very vocal at coming out against the riots, which I think, look, none of us are for rioting. We're for law and order, and a lot of the people who are rioting were ultimately only wrecking their own communities. But the fact is, we had somebody who was beheaded, nearly beheaded in this country, by somebody who came from Sudan, got on a plane to, got to Paris, managed to get to Dublin, and then went to Northern Ireland. And then all of a sudden, what happens? We're told that this guy his immigration status, according to what GB News was reporting, was progressed at a far faster rate than it should have. Now, for me, my wife's from America, she's from California. For the first year of our marriage, we were apart because she went legally through the system, and there was one bit of evidence that was incorrect, and lo and behold, for the first year of marriage, I couldn't get out to you guys in America and see my wife, and she couldn't get out here either. So when you've gone through the process legally, and you see people who are coming from Sudan and they're given special privileges, it's fair to say that there's two tier. And I think when we see the horror, the absolute horror of that report from Rupert Lowe, and why the government itself didn't bring this forward, I think people are rightly indignant against the lawlessness that we're seeing from the government.
And so just for everyone to see it, and just go ahead and play it now. This is horrifying. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you need to see it. Not going to sanitize any of this, because Christians, I think, need to have a biblical response and a meaningful, passionate, real biblical response to this. The church in Ireland needs to rise up. The church all over the UK needs to rise up and give to these governments the law of God and the rules and statutes of God to turn this sort of evil away. And here's a video. Again, please, if you have children, do not play this in front of your children. And I want to warn you that what you're about to watch is horrifying. But I'm going to play it so you get a feel for why there is such a reaction all over the UK right now. Here we go.
He's just killed him. Hurry up! Dead. He's completely dead. No, he's not.
Has he got a knife?
Yeah. Get off him, you fucking rat! Yo! He's cutting him. He's cutting him.
This is where he's trying to behead him. Horrific scene, and that is what, of course, set Belfast ablaze. So, Dr. Sandlin, you are known for your stance on the authority of Scripture, God's law. You've preached and you've taught on this. You've written on this. What are the first thoughts that come to your mind, Dr. Sandlin, when you see this sort of chaos and darkness in what were once Christian nations? What are the first thoughts that come to your mind? What do you feel like we need to be communicating, ministers of the gospel need to be communicating to face this evil down and ultimately bring light and blessing and peace and healing to these nations? What are the first thoughts that come to your mind, brother?
Well, it's the inevitable consequence of the abandonment of the Bible, and specifically biblical law. To people who think the Bible doesn't have answers for these issues, and I don't mean merely the rape, which obviously is horrific, and the political cover-up, which is almost as horrific. I mean that the Bible establishes truths and principles about the issue of immigration. We see that in the ancient Commonwealth of Israel. And no, as our opponents like to say, we're not saying that the United States or England is precisely identical to ancient Israel. But the Bible does contain basic legal principles we should be operating by. Here's one that many people don't know. There are two different Hebrew words in the Old Testament to refer to foreigners who lived within ancient Israel. One referred to those who had come in, bowed themselves to the Lord God Jehovah, and who operated according to this law-based society and were willing participants. And the others are what we would just call today resident aliens. They just happen to be there. There you see a specific distinction between what we today would call legal and illegal immigration. And I would say it had nothing to do with race. Of course, we've just heard these horrific testimonies and the racism against whites. And of course, it can happen the other way. Racism is a very, very old sin. But the Bible does establish these categories. It is clear that the foundational basis of immigration of any nation is religious, whether they acknowledge it or not. And in the United States today, though it was not founded explicitly as a Christian nation, England was certainly developed into a Christian nation with the Magna Carta and so on. There should be religious principles for immigration. I don't mean everybody has to affirm Christianity or affirm the Orthodox faith to be a citizen, but they must affirm these basics. And of course, as the article in Not the Bee pointed out, this massive immigration really began, the doors were open in 1948, but radically accelerated under Tony Blair, his administration. It was at that time that he was widely quoted in the press, and I do remember this. I don't have the quote right in front of me, but this is very similar to what he said. He said, "We're going to rub these old Britishers' face. We're going to rub their nose," he said, their face or their nose, in open borders and multiculturalism. Well, this is what you get when you no longer have a religious premise for immigration, when you no longer have a basis of the rule of law. So, and notice carefully, guys, it's not simply the abandonment of biblical law. The abandonment of biblical law eventually leads to a full-scale antinomianism against even British law and American law. This is the price of antinomianism that we're seeing. And to people who say that, well, this couldn't happen, for example, in the United States, they're dead wrong. Because once you abandon God's law, including his law for immigration, once you abandon God's law, then the dike is opened and you have no barrier at all to this kind of godless, reprehensible behavior.
Sorry. Jeff is actually going to have to go. He's having a small emergency at home. Nothing too crazy, but I will take over from here. Thank you, brother. That was excellent. We're actually going to go to a break real quick. This is a good place to take a break and hear from one of our sponsors. We'll be back here just in about a minute or two, and we'll continue the conversation.
This episode is brought to you by IonLayer at ionlayer.com. Go and check out the health benefits, the wellness benefits, and longevity benefits of NAD treatments. NAD is nicknamed the fountain of youth for a reason. You have an abundance of this in your system when you're young. As you get older, it drops off, and now we've found a way to get NAD into our systems. They do it through IV treatments, but they're very expensive, and it's also extremely painful and difficult. However, IonLayer found a way to get a high dose of NAD into your system through a medical patch you wear on your arm. You wear it for about 14 hours. You get a high dose of NAD treatment into your system and no pain at all. And it is a fraction of the cost of what you would pay for an IV treatment. In the coupon code, type in Apologia in all caps. They're going to hook you up with a great discount for an already amazingly cost-effective product. And they bless Apologia Studios and help us to stay on the air and do all these programs with you. Don't forget also, IonLayer has added a glutathione patch as well. Glutathione, the master antioxidant. Go check out the health benefits of glutathione. I'm doing this stuff anyways. It's blessed my life in tremendous ways. And so if you want to focus on your health, wellness, and longevity, nothing better in my mind than ionlayer.com for your NAD and glutathione treatments. IonLayer.com. Don't forget to put Apologia in all caps in the coupon code.
Welcome back, everyone, to this very important conversation. So, Pastor Jeff's okay. Just FYI, I see people asking. Small emergency at home, but everyone seems to be okay. So, thank you for your concern. So Andrew, I know Andrew only has a little bit of time left with us, so we'll pick back up, and I told him I'd let him add whatever commentary he'd like to add before we leave, and then I'll finish the show with Nathan.
Yeah, as Nathan indicated, and thank you so much for that account, Nathan. The pushback and the public protests against this unimaginable. I mean, it's difficult to get our mind around it when we listen to it. This horror, that's understandable, but that's not the ultimate solution to the problem. Great Britain and the United States must return to their Christian roots, and politicians must recognize their responsibility to enforce the law of God. Almost certainly 1700 years, Islam has been using the threat of the power of the sword to get its way. And multiculturalism and the whole progressive notion that we dare not hold anybody accountable because of their cultural mores or their cultural history, and that all cultures essentially are equal and should be treated equally. That, of course, is utter fallacy. It is that sort of oddly relativism under the guise of tolerance that leads to this intolerance and rape. That's the irony. There must be a form of intolerance against that form of intolerance, and that happens, of course, in biblical law and the Christian faith. So the greatest need of Britain right now, and the greatest need of the United States, is a true religious revival. And I don't mean having an evangelist stand and preaching for a week. I mean a revival and a return to the law of God, as biblically was the case under Josiah and at other times. That is the only hope in this situation. And if I were a British politician, and Nathan, you're in a position perhaps to influence some, press them hard on their responsibility to enforce the law. First, of course, to unbelievers, you could take just basic British law, and of course, fundamentally, biblical law on which it should be based. Other than that, there is no hope.
Amen, brother. Thank you so much. How much longer you got with us, Andrew?
Maybe, about 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'll just say, I was just looking, I was trying to remember. I mean, the first time, Nathan's going to get into the two-tier policing conversation in a minute, but Gabe, my computer's not connected, so I can't play that unless you can play it. Sorry, Jeff just brought the else with the computer, so I mean, I was looking, I think 2017 was the first I had been out to Ireland, so we've been there quite a few times. That's how I got to know Nathan, and it's crazy to me how fast things have just gone off the rails, specifically in Northern Ireland, because Northern Ireland is part of the UK, but they have their own government, and the UK came in a few years ago and basically said, was that 22? I think, Nathan, they came in and basically said,
it was 2020. It was brought in 2019. The act. It was ratified in 2020. And then abortion was decriminalized.
That's right. Yeah. So the UK just came in and said, "Oh, you're no longer. We're going to tell you how to do things here." And I was always encouraged by guys like Nathan and just how overtly Christian Northern Ireland is, and just I always kind of joke that there's little Covenant or Presbyterian churches at every corner, like we have Starbucks here, and just amazing. And they're going, "We don't want this. This is not what we voted." And the UK is like, nope, you're going to do what we say. We're calling the shots now. And just how rapidly, so that's 6 years, how rapidly things have declined to where you're at now and the things you're dealing with. I've been talking to some of my other friends in Northern Ireland, just, not feeling safe taking their kids to the park because there's Muslim men there watching their children. Like, it's unfathomable to me. So, Nathan, I guess if maybe you could talk about that, just experiencing that, and we can get into this attack a little bit as well, but I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, look, I think I'm really thankful for what Andrew said about, we have to base our legal systems on something. And as he rightly stated, we in Northern Ireland, we in the UK built our state on from Alfred the Great on, and in Northern Ireland it was from St. Patrick. Our legal system was based on Christian principles, right? Biblical principles. And now, after 2020, Yeah, we built it on biblical principles. So you have a look at, say, what happened in 2022. There was a rule that was brought in that on buffer zones that you weren't allowed to influence around abortion clinics. And by the way, that's every hospital.
Yep.
And Pastor Clive, he preached John 3:16 without referring to abortion, which demonstrates that this, and then he was summarily brought to court and has been convicted.
Yeah.
So he's convicted, criminal conviction, for preaching John 3:16, for God so loved the world that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Yet, what happened a couple of weeks ago, where people, Muslims and people from other faiths, were having a festival and celebrations in public parks with knives. And that the police did not invest, certain police departments were refusing to act or investigate that. So we have a situation where we see policing of a pastor preaching John 3:16 was criminal, and somebody waving knives about in the context of Henry Novak, and that was okay. So we see that dual purpose of law, the two-tiered policing, and I think what you say is right. Northern Ireland is the most Christian part of the UK, without a shadow of a doubt. But the secularism is coming straight from Westminster in London, and it's being forced on us against our will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess if you can just bring us into, and I'll play that video we're talking about here in a minute. I'm sorry, we're just hooking my computer up as Nathan's talking here. Could you maybe just bring us in, so we don't have to show the rest of that video because it's awful, but bring us into that situation a little bit, like what happened. Obviously, we know a Muslim man tried to behead somebody, but there's a lot more context and information that's important to that conversation.
Well, I think I'm a bit cautious about this because this is a live case. Okay. And as it's a live case, it's currently being investigated by the police.
Okay.
But what I can say is it's, there's the context before that a lot of people are not sure of just yet. And hopefully this man will be brought to justice. So I don't want to get in the way of that judicial, because he needs to be brought to justice.
Understood.
Effectively. So, but what I can say is that I think there is a wider context that maybe we could talk about. Northern Ireland, so the UK over since 2020. Now, Andrew was absolutely right that immigration sped up in 1997, but in 2020, after COVID, we saw an increase in immigration that we'd never seen before. Year on year, we were talking about 900,000 in the first year. Then there was 1.2 million in the second year. I think it was 21, 22, 23. It was around 1 million as well. And last year, 2025, it was close to 1,813,000. So and already in this part of the year we've got 200,000. So what we're seeing in this country is around 5 million people have come into this country in the past 5 years alone. Now, for the United States, 5 million is bad, but with a country of 320 million, but in a country of 70 million, that's quite sizable.
Yeah.
And I looked at the stats. There is 13 million people in the United Kingdom today that are foreign born, that were not born in this country. Now, some of those people, will maybe be people who were born, military personnel whose children will have been born in, bases, but the majority of that is going to be first generation immigrants. But in the Republic of Ireland, it's even worse. It's about 23%, almost a quarter of everyone in the Republic of Ireland was not born in Ireland. And there's parties out there like Sinn Féin who proclaim that they're Irish and support Irish language, but don't be fooled. These people are not for Irishness. They do not care about the Irish people, and they're quite happy to see their nation transformed. And I want to say this: I know so many people, in America are from Irish descent, Ulster Scots descent, English descent, Scots and Welsh descent. The countries that your ancestors left, you would not recognize. They would not recognize, and they would mourn for their country, what they saw it's become.
So sad. Okay, so, well, I was gonna say, I've heard, because I have friends in Dublin, obviously, as well, and I've heard that Dublin is far worse. Like you were just saying, like, I mean, from my understanding, they're just taking over the city center area where the capital's at, and it's just not even safe, hardly, to walk there, from what I'm being told. So, just insane. It's just like I said, the rate of demise in the last few years is just, it's utterly astonishing to witness. Okay, so I'm gonna play this video real quick here. So this is the arrest, correct, Gabe? Sorry. Gabe, why don't you explain what this video is, because I haven't seen it.
So prior to the attempted beheading, one of the things that was causing a lot of controversy was the murder and arrest of Henry Novak. And sorry if I'm a bit quiet, but I'm using a bad mic. So the context is that a Sikh family called the police and said they've been racially abused, and the police arrived, and that's what's happening in the video.
Okay. Okay, so I'll play this, and then Nathan, if you're comfortable talking about this a little bit, and just bring us into this, what you mean by the two-tier police system. This is just a few minutes long here.
My dad's just holding it now. Right. He keeps dropping side to side, so I'm just trying to keep him set up.
Right.
He's got a mouthful of blood. I don't want him.
He was on the bin on the other side of this gate.
He's jumped over these fences and stuff like that. And
Right.
he's up
Move
here.
away, mate.
He's obviously fallen
Right.
from there and he slipped from there.
His
other shoe is left over there, mate.
What's your name, mate? Huh? Has anyone been hurt other than him?
Yeah, me. He's grabbed my brother. He's took my turban off. Started grabbing my head.
Are you injured?
Yeah, I've got swollen eye, little bruises.
Alright, just step back a little bit for me. Someone flag these down.
Got this stud.
Right, let's get you out of there, shall we? Oh.
I was in bed asleep. When they just find me up there, look, someone's attacked me. I can't breathe.
Grab his other arm. What's happened to you, alright? You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? I don't think you have, mate. Hand?
I can't breathe.
Put the hand in the cuff, mate.
This is like the times this has happened to us. You've been walking, you can't multiple times we've had people racistly attacked us and nothing happens.
He's saying he's been stabbed, so
Where
let's
is it
just
you
check
think
him.
you've been stabbed? In the face? Oh no, but we have to check, don't we?
Right.
In the face?
Just get these back off, get their details and that, and I'll keep hold of him.
Should we
Right, keep you on your side, mate. You better retrieve then.
Say again.
Saying to him, keeping him on his side. We were sat up when we had him here, but he didn't like it. What's your name, mate? At the moment you are under arrest, and that's for assault, so you do not have to say anything, may harm in defence if you do not mention when questioned. So to which you later rely in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence, alright? He's going to be sick, I think.
What's his name?
I just want you to call it.
Yeah, we've got this male, he's been beat up. Are we able to get an ambulance, please? His pupils aren't even reacting. Yeah.
Okay, so so this is the video that I guess that's started a lot of the outrage. So Nathan, could you just maybe, like I said, kind of bring us into the situation, what's going on here, and why has this been such an issue? And then let's talk about the two-tier policing.
Yeah. So what we have here is we've a guy called Henry Novak. Now, this is the crime has the criminal has been convicted, so I'm much more at liberty to sort of talk about this. So what happened was Henry Novak was heading home from a night out, and somehow he got into an altercation with Mr. Digwa, who is a Sikh, and he held a ceremonial knife and proceeded to stab Henry Novak. Now, what then happened was his brother, who, by the way, has not been charged for the crime of perverting the course of justice, and you'll see why this is important now.
Yep.
His brother also was caught wielding a sword in a online in some car traffic dispute. Now, remember this. This is the UK that doesn't permit guns, doesn't permit swords, doesn't permit the brandishing of offensive weapons. We have a different system to yourselves in terms of use of the right to bear arms. But we're not going to discuss that today. What we are able to discuss, however, is the fact that his brother then called the police and said, my brother was racially abused, and so Henry Novak is found then lying in the car park of the house of Mr. Digwa, and he's saying, "Oh, I was racially abused. He knocked off my turban." Meanwhile, Mr. Novak, Henry, is lying there dying, close to death, and he's saying he's semi-unconscious, and he says to the police, "I'm stabbed." The policeman and the police had already been primed to be told that he was the aggressor. Not only is he the aggressor, but he was the aggressor in a racialized context. As a result of that, then the policeman goes over and says, "I don't think you are, mate." So despite the man lying there, despite the procedures and protocols being, you should if somebody says they're stabbed, policing protocols say you must first investigate. There's a very specific process, because somebody that has been stabbed, it can be hidden, and he doesn't do that. What he does is, the first thing he does is he puts his hands behind his back and places him under arrest. The victim is then being arrested, and it's only after that they then start saying, "Is he okay?" He's starting to go unconscious, and as you hear and as you saw, as he's going unconscious, what happens next? The policeman says, "I'm placing you under arrest." Now, where a lot of the concern about this is, then Mr. Digwa is brought in, and apparently he's allowed to get food, and they're showing a lot of care and attention when he was then finally arrested and brought in. But the reason this is about two-tiered, and what does two-tiered mean? Well, it means two separate laws, two enforcement regimes. There's a harsher enforcement regime than another, with regards, and the Bible teaches us very clearly, there is one law for the foreigner and one law for the local. There's to be one law. It's to be impartial, and that is the way the law is to be administered. The sword bearer in Scripture is to be impartial. But as you see here, it didn't seem to be impartial. In fact, what was even worse was it's been reported by GB News that the police were wanting to present Mr. Novak as the aggressor.
Yeah.
So, there is no way in which now the reason people are saying believe that this is an example of two-tiered policing is because all police have to go through equality training, anti-racism training,
Yeah,
and this was brought in particularly as a result of the BLM riots and so forth. So all this anti-racism training, all this anti-racism thinking, when somebody then says says to a white person, you're a racist or you racially abused me, they're the ones who are firstly treated. Now, this is not an isolated incident. We see preachers getting arrested. There was a good friend of mine from Bristol. He was arrested even though the Muslims were assaulting him as he was preaching.
Wow.
There are examples. That's Pastor Moodley, by the way. There's examples of there are examples as well where we look at the BLM riots, the arrests compared to, say, the Southport riots, which were anti-immigration. Keir Starmer himself took the knee for the BLM riots, and then as soon as the Stockport riots happened as a result of two girls being murdered by an immigrant, then what happens? Keir Starmer doesn't take the knee this time. Instead, he says, you're going to be put on remand and you're going to be locked up. So we see from the very top, there's a different approach. When it came to the riots here in Northern Ireland, when it was BLM, we had a member of the Legislative Assembly saying, "Oh, I'm going to throw money and give money to the BLM protesters in America and give money for their funds." And then what happens? He's criticizing the protesters and the rioters who are in Belfast. So we see the inconsistency from left-wing politicians, from left-wing institutions, and that is the concern here. And it does not accord with biblical justice, which is to be impartial. It's to be fair. And I'll even look at Northern Ireland. There's a very high-profile case, and again, it's going on at the minute, so I don't want to say too much.
Sure, I understand.
Jeffrey Donaldson, he was the leader of the DUP. He is up before the court for alleged, and which he denies, alleged sexual impropriety with minors. Right now, the reason this is interesting is the police here acted swiftly, robustly, to based on the complaints that they had. But the police, compare that response, and again, I want to say Mr. Donaldson denies those allegations.
Sure,
it's before a jury right now, but compare the policing response with what we heard in that report from Rupert Lowe.
Gotcha.
And we hear what's going on there. For years and decades, the police were aware of this. Local government was aware of this, and everybody stood silent. And one of the reasons was they were afraid of being called racist.
Yeah.
So, racist, the word racist is being weaponized by bad people, and the problem is it's disempowering the lawgiver and the law upholder.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that, brother. That's really, really helpful. We're actually going to go to break here again. And just to make a quick question, did Mr. Novak survive, or did he die?
No.
Okay.
He died.
That on the spot, or did they get him to the hospital, or?
I think my understanding is that he died on the way to the hospital.
Okay. And so the other guy was charged with murder. Is that correct?
He was charged with murder. It's currently being appealed. The sentence is being appealed because they believe, the prosecution believe it was too lenient.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I didn't plan this, but we're going to go to break here, actually, and you're going to hear from our sponsor, Amtech Blades. Because yes, we do. Like I'm carrying an Amtech blade right now. I got 2 blades and a firearm on my person, and we have our Amtech blades right there as well. Didn't plan it that way, but let's go to that break. We'll be right back, and we'll pick up the conversation. This video is brought to you by Amtech Blades. We are very excited to be partnering with Amtech. Bill Rapier, longtime Navy SEAL, DevGuru operator, amazing brother and friend. Looking for a battle axe to carry on your person, to chop some wood? They've got you covered. Looking for a blade to carry on you every day. Also got you covered. Look at this. I got to check my mail. What do we got going on here? Oh, look how sharp that is. What is this? Oh, 5% off. You can go to amtechblades.com, put Apology in the coupon code, get 5% off your order, and he will match that and give 5% to end abortion now. Again, amtechblades.com. We're grateful for them. Check them out.
Hey, Bonson U Live is finally here. Join me on June 29th for our very first live session, available exclusively to all access members at Apologia Studios. As you work through the incredible lectures of Dr. Greg Bonson, you're bound to have questions about apologetics, theology, philosophy, and the Christian faith. That's exactly what Bonson U Live is for. Once a month, I'll be hosting an interactive live stream where you can engage directly with me, ask your questions, and dive deeper into the topics that you're studying. Whether you're new to presuppositional apologetics or looking to sharpen your understanding of the Christian worldview, this is your opportunity to learn, to interact, and to grow alongside a community of like-minded believers. So join me on June 29th for our first Bonson U Live exclusively at apologiastudios.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking around, and I'm glad to... I was just... Oh. Check. There we go. Sorry about that. Lost my mic for a second. Glad to have my friend Nathan on here. I'm glad. I was just saying I was so glad. I literally asked him 2 hours ago if he could do this because it was kind of a last minute thing. And Nathan's actually the one that brought me into this conversation to begin with because I had totally missed what was happening. And so anyways, so I'm gonna play a clip here real quick that's talking about the riots and Belfast and just kind of the outcry of what's gone on here since all of this in the last couple of weeks. So we'll play this real quick and then pick up.
It's probably your volume.
It is common sense and nothing more.
Sorry, we're having all kinds of technical issues here. Okay, try it again.
I am sick to death of being told that anybody who stands up and says that is far right. It is common sense and nothing more. I don't know how many people contacted this show in the first hour, but there was one voice note that stood out. And before Richard Tice, wherever you are, just pin back your logos. This was Rob.
Morning, Jez. On my way to work, that's normal. Listening to you talk about the thing that happened in Belfast last night, all the unrest. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? They're not listening. The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here. It's literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field. You are giving them a target-rich environment. You haven't vetted them. You've done nothing. All you've done is dump them in a place where they can wreak havoc. Where they come from, guess what? There's no law. If they can do literally whatever they like. They come over here, there's lawyers, of course, taxpayer funded, they get a nice cushy home, running water, Sky TV, gym memberships, bus passes. They can literally go where they want and create havoc. And when they do, the people that foisted them upon us, guess what? They say, don't get upset, don't do anything, don't go out and cause unrest. Well, I'll tell you what, mate, stop reaping, then you might not have to sow it, because this country is absolutely on the edge. They cannot take much more of people getting stabbed, raped, blown up, you name it. You foisted it upon us for the last 25, 30 years, ever since Blair said, I'm going to rub your noses in it. Well, guess what? What goes round comes round. And I think the political class have got a very, very, very big smack on the nose coming.
6 minutes past 7, we'll say a very good morning.
Okay, so, Nathan, why don't you just kind of bring us in then to what's going on in Belfast? I think I've heard that things have kind of calmed down a little bit, but what's been the result of this happening here in Belfast?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to address what was said there before.
Yes,
right?
Please.
So, because I think what we see there, is, and what we hear there, is a man who is at the end of his tether,
sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is where where a lot of people from working class areas are, because a lot of working class areas are being ghettoized. Okay, and the thing is, working class Britain is very different to middle class Britain. Middle class Britain, because class is a big divide in Northern Ireland and in the general UK. Okay, so people who are middle class tend to live in nice suburbs. They tend to be almost exclusively people who are from here, find their origins here. Those that don't tend to be immigrants who have been integrated well into society. Okay, we've had a long-standing Chinese, Indian population in Northern Ireland, and they've integrated well, and things. That sort of immigration has never been a problem. And let's be honest, not every immigrant is a rapist. Not every immigrant is any of these things. In fact, many are here just to contribute, because unfortunately we have a situation where we have a labour shortage. And by the way, we've got to be honest, a lot of that is due to the child sacrifice of abortion.
Sure.
There's 10 million people who are not here in the UK that should have been. Now there's 13 million people who are here because of immigration. Now, it doesn't take a genius to work out that abortion may have had something to do with that. But let's be clear. Okay, let's be clear. So that all said, the middle class areas are people who very often they go out to work 9 to 5. They live in a nice house. They say hello to their neighbours, but they don't have a lot of affinity very often with their immediate area. Working class people, however, tend to have a very strong community. They know their neighbours. They're in, and they've known their neighbours for generations.
Mm-hmm.
And their houses, because they're often smaller and cheaper, are being used by the state to house, and a lot of these sort of areas that are vulnerable, as it were, a lot of these houses are being bought up by the state. Those houses are then being used to house asylum seekers. Okay, and then because there's cheaper rents as well, the state's buying up more of those houses, using them to house asylum seekers, and because of the cheap rents, more asylum seekers, more refugees, and more immigrants are moving into those areas. And people are therefore being priced out of their own community. They're moving on. Meanwhile, other people are moving in. So they're seeing their community changed and transformed. Like one of my dad used to be a pastor of a church, and that area, I would have known. My great-grandfather lived in that area. My nanny and granddad were originally from that area. My mum was from that area. And I knew a lot of the people who lived in each house. But what's happening is the old people have moved out. And now I was walking down some of those streets, and you would not have recognized the community, because it's you've got people from all over the world. And, people from all over the world come from different cultures, and they have different, some of them and a lot of them have different standards of hygiene and cleanliness. And I was walking down the street the other day, I saw somebody eating a bit of fruit and throwing at a cat point blank range. This is the sort of things that people are seeing in their daily life, their daily experience. Then they're realizing, oh, I can't get into my GP, or my daughter can't move into my community because she's priced out of my community. Yeah. So this is the melting pot that people are seeing. And because people care about their community, they care about their culture, they're seeing another culture, alien culture, moving in. And that is something, this is why there's a lot of concern from working class people from both sides of the community. And because the church is quite middle class, it doesn't see or experience immigration in the way in which the working classes do. And very often the middle class only hears one verse repeated ad nauseum, which is love the stranger in the land you're in. And it's amazing how theonomist they are with that one verse. Yeah. But they don't look at the wider context that Andrew laid out. The fact that there's one law that in ancient Israel, and again we can't identify. It's analogous, but it's not direct. We can't just say we're like Israel, but there are principles there in terms of maintaining culture, maintaining the integration. There are things there that with our view of multiculturalism isn't happening, and I think fundamentally we need to get back to the Bible.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we can do is for pastors to actually start reading the Old Testament and preach the whole of the doctrine of the stranger, not just love the stranger. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. So just curious, because I don't know the answer to this. We watch a video of burning vehicles. We're hearing there's riots. Who's starting the riots? Is it the immigrants, or is it the Irish folks that have just had enough, and they're trying to combat the violence from the immigrants?
Well, look, there were lots of protests held across Northern Ireland, right? Most of them were peaceful, and I don't want to be like mostly peaceful riots, because the riots were awful, but there were a lot of places like Lisburn saw thousands of people protesting, and there was not any Antrim, Ballymena, and there was no violence at all. What effectively happened was some people started putting out things on social media, AI designed things, and say be at this location, and then what happened was a lot of kids sort of thought this would be a great day to do a bit of recreational rioting, and there were adults among them too, most of them from outside their areas, and they then started wrecking the joint. So effectively that's what it was. In some parts of the city, the paramilitaries basically said that if you do that, there will be consequences for you and your family.
Yeah.
So shock horror, in those parts of Belfast, there was no rioting, but in other parts of the city there was not that, and people were kids were arrested, and they're now going to bear the consequences of their foolish actions. But I mean, so I want to be clear that this wasn't representative of the whole of Northern Ireland. Right? This was a lot of kids that just said, we're going to go to this area, all being WhatsApping around, let's all go here, and a couple hundred of them, and then people are running riot.
That's really super helpful on, because like here we just see the news. Oh, Belfast is on fire. What's going on? Like we don't know what's going on, what the context is. So help me with this, because my understanding is I've heard that there's actually been native Irishmen who are just literally going door to door and looking for immigrants, like trying to take things into their own hands. Is that accurate? Mm-hmm. Is that going on? What does that look like? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wasn't on the ground, but I can tell you what I saw on social media and what I heard. And yes, a lot of innocent immigrants were being targeted by some of these kids, some adults, but most of them were coming from outside the area, and they were, there were a lot of people who were evicted from their homes and faced trauma, and I think, and look, I mean, we as Christians can't stand over that and say that's okay, because we can't just pick on innocent people, and we can't take the law into our own hands. Yeah. So, but look, what I'm saying is that was happening in certain parts of Belfast. It wasn't happening throughout the whole of Belfast. And look, Belfast has had, Belfast generally has this time of year quite a few riots anyway. Yeah. So it's this is sort of not uncommon for Northern Ireland, unfortunately. It's what we tend to do at this time of year.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys have a history of things like this and violence. And I mean, you're old enough to have probably been on the tail end of the IRA wars and stuff like that. And so it's not something that's completely unfamiliar to you. But I guess we have about 10 minutes left here. And I appreciate you sticking on. I know you're 8 hours ahead there, so it's getting late for you. So I guess what can people do, if maybe here in the States? Is there anything we can do to help? If you're in Ireland, if you're in the UK, or in Northern Ireland, I should say, or you're in the UK, is there anything people can do to help? Because and I'll say this, like, obviously you made a great point. We're not encouraging or suggesting vigilante justice.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not, suggesting, forming a mob. But I will say at what point, right, if the government is betraying you, at what point is it biblically justified then to take a defensive posture to defend your property and your loved ones? And again, I'm not encouraging violence or anything like that. Like when I hear stuff we just talked about, I'm like, part of me is like, I don't necessarily fault those people if they're feeling that they're in danger. I'm not encouraging that, but I feel like this is a very important conversation, an important question that should be asked. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And like I said, anything that people can do maybe to help. Let's bring attention to that.
Well, I think we have to be careful as well because, like, as you said, I came from the tail end of the Troubles, and I have family members who died in the Troubles.
Wow.
So a friend, I know I've friends who died in the Troubles. I mean, look, there was no family that was untouched, either in your sort of maybe not your immediate family, but maybe your sort of extended family, and we are a very clannish people, in this country. So I think we have to be careful about sort of saying, right, let's go out and because the problem is once we start saying, okay, arm yourselves for militias, these things take on a world of their own.
Oh yeah. And
I have spoken to people who did that at the early parts of the Troubles to defend themselves against the IRA, and what ended up happening was broken families, sorrow, loss of friends. So I think fundamentally at this stage, and I also don't think that the legal process is done. I think there are things that we can do. So I think fundamentally it is about getting in this government, which we have in the UK, removed. This government has to go because this government, has just been lawless.
Yeah.
to use another word. So I think that's one thing. I think, and there is a legal process to do that. That's called elections. So it is incumbent on every person in the UK to say, whatever it happens, don't vote for these people who are supporting mass immigration, supporting the abandonment of Christian rules-based law. So and let's start to reconstruct our society. And I think fundamentally we have to get, but we're not going to reconstruct unless we start realizing we need to get back to a worldview that gives us the strength to rebuild that society. Secularism has failed, so we have two choices: we have Islam, or we have Christianity.
Yeah.
We have only two choices. Yeah. So what that means is those people out there who are non-Christians and working class communities, I want to appeal to you and say it's time to return to the God of your fathers. Okay? I want to say that. And what I want to say to the church is, Amen. It's time to return to the God of the Word and the Word of God. And we need to get back to the Word of God. And in every area of life, including immigration, and proclaim that and live that and be prepared to, like Pastor Clive, take your principles and suffer.
Yeah.
Okay? So, and speak up, because there's a people there who are not Christians, who are unreached in these working class communities, and they want to see leadership. And if they don't get leadership from the church, guess what? They're going to get leadership from somewhere else, some secular source that may not be to our liking, in fact, won't be to our liking, and the society will not improve in the long term. So I think that's what I would say to the people here.
Okay, thank you, man.
I think what I would say to the Americans is this, though, brother. We've got to realize that, there's there was a group, before all this happened, in fact, 2 weeks ago, there was a race relations strategy that was coming through the government, okay, of Northern Ireland. And the executive committee were looking at this, and there's a couple of conservative MLAs who were speaking on that, Timothy Gaston, Philip Brett. And at that time, there were activists who were giving evidence. Some of the activists who were giving evidence said a lot of untruths about political representatives, but one of them actually called one of the conservative representatives used an expletive, and they used the word I'm glad I got the B, right? And you can fill in what that means, but it means an illegitimate child, okay? And what was interesting wasn't that I did a bit of research into these organizations. One of the organizations was getting $500,000 a year. The other organization was getting $250,000 a year. And when you actually look at whenever you look at, say, the honey fund, as it were, there are all of these activist organizations across Northern Ireland pushing left-wing agendas, and they're getting funding from the state. Yeah. They're getting funding from globalist organizations. They're getting funding from US aid and America. So one thing that you can do is you can speak to your banks, you can speak to your representatives, and you can say to them, we don't want our money. We don't want money from America going to invest in organizations and activists to fund an army of people who are undermining the Christendom in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, please do, because I don't want to send my money for those reasons either.
Yes.
No, thank you, brother. That's super helpful. And I just want to say, I've been wanting to get back to Ireland. We love you people so much, and some of my most favorite people in the world who I know are watching live. Love you guys. I miss you. I'm not even going to say where they live. What's that?
You're very welcome to come. Look, anytime you want.
I know.
So.
We'd love to. I have a second home there in Northern Ireland. I'm not going to say where because I don't want any immigrants showing up at their house and pitchforks and torches. But they're watching live right now. I love you guys so much. So, by the way, I meant to mention this. I totally forgot. So, just so everyone knows, one of the reasons I wanted Nathan on here is because he's involved politically. He works for some of the legislators. So he's very much in the know when it comes to how the political atmosphere is there in Northern Ireland. So help our listeners understand this, because you still have a functioning government there in Northern Ireland. But it sounds like you're allowed to function, but you still just have to do what they say at Parliament. So help us understand, like, what does that look like? Do you guys have the ability even to say in Northern Ireland, no more, we're not taking any more of these immigrants, or we're not allowing this, we're not allowing that? Or are you having to, bow to what's going down in Westminster?
Well, I think you've got to understand it in the context like federal almost, okay? So you've got the federal government here, you've got the regional government, the state government here. Yeah. You've got your county government, and so forth. So if you imagine Westminster as the federal government, okay. Okay. The only and you imagine Northern Ireland, the Assembly as the state government, and then your councils as your sort of city, metropolitan, and county governance. Okay, so that's the way we sort of structured. Westminster, however, is different to Congress. In America, it is very much the local government tends to have a lot of power. Sure. And then the state government has a lot of power, and then the federal government, and there's a clear separation of powers. What we have in the United Kingdom is slightly different in that Parliament is sovereign. Okay, so what that means is that Parliament can literally do whatever it wants. So if Parliament says we are giving and delegating power down, then it delegates power down. If Parliament says we're taking that back, it has the sovereign legal right to do so. And the only power that Westminster has, so the Parliament limit on Parliament is that it cannot bind its successors, and the other limitation is that the King technically could refuse to sign legislation into law. That hasn't happened since, I think, Queen Anne about 400 years ago.
Yeah.
So we in a sense, that's really where we are. Yes, there's a functioning executive in Northern Ireland. The Assembly can make laws, write laws, insofar as Westminster doesn't overrule.
I see.
And in 2020, it overruled. And in fact, it was unprecedented because normally it chose not to. There was restraint, but it chose to do so on the issue of abortion and the issue of marriage.
Yes.
And that's really what happened. So that's really where we are.
Gotcha. Okay.
At this point in time.
So if you guys there, in Northern Ireland would say we're not allowing any more immigration in, we're closing the borders, what do you think the reaction from Westminster would be?
Well, effectively, that's a federal decision, right? And not, Parliament. So if you know what I mean, like state can't really.
I see.
States can't really make decisions on, immigration policy for you guys. So for us, Westminster holds that role. So in a sense, what I'm saying is we need to change the government. So the government at Westminster needs to change.
Okay. So one more question, and then I'll let you go. No, it's almost 10 o'clock your time. So obviously there's a bit of an outrage of all this going on, right? Not just in Northern Ireland, but we played a bunch of stuff from Britain. Do you see any hope of things being changed? Are people outraged enough that there might be some change, or do you see it just hopeless until you get new legislators in? Like, what's your feel on that situation?
It's hard to say, because now it really depends actually on a by-election that's happening today.
Oh, really?
So there's a by-election happening in Makersfield. So it's a bit of a complex situation, but effectively what's going on is there is a MP who stood down, and they're a Labour MP, and they want to get in this new guy who is Andy Burnham, and he's a popular local mayor, but he's worse than Starmer. He is actually more left wing. He wants to tax all property. So in a sense, he's not going to bring the solution. But there are two other parties that are sort of in the running. One is Reform Farage, and the other is Restore, and that's Rupert Lowe. Now, my heart is with Rupert Lowe, but my head is with Farage in this one, because Farage's party is the only one that can really win. And I think the thing is, if Andy Burnham fails to get elected here, Labour are sort of hoping that he's the nice face, the presentable form of the Labour Party. So if he doesn't get elected here, that throws Labour into complete tailspin. And there's a part of Labour wants to go veer left and support all of the chaos going on, because they're saying we're losing votes to the Green Party. There's another part of Labour is saying, no, let's go right. We got to challenge, Restore and Reform. So in a weird way, today we'll see, because if Andy Burnham gets in, I suspect that until there's another national election, we're not going to see much change. We might see a bit of change around some things. In fact, I think that as long as we have Labour, things are going to get worse. Social media bans and so forth are already, we're seeing digital IDs, they're all being pushed on us. And this government is, we've had a lot of bad governments since Tony Blair, but this government is the worst government that we've had. And it's getting to the point of tyrannical.
Wow. Okay, one more question. I promise it will end after this. My friends over there said to ask you about the European Parliament vote yesterday on immigration. Said it was the strictest migration law ever. So do you know?
Yeah. Well, yes. I think there was this. Now, I haven't really followed this too much, but I did see it come in. Now, the European Union does have an impact here. I didn't want to get too complicated.
No, I understand.
Because we have left the EU, Northern Ireland's still part of the European single market, although GB isn't. So thing called the protocol. So, in a sense, Europe is going to have an impact, and also the common travel area means that anyone from Dublin can effectively end up in London without having to go through any border checks. So there is going to have to, if we want to stop immigration, it can't just be stopping immigration in the UK. It also has to be in the Republic of Ireland. Okay,
Sure.
so it has to be all aspects of the common travel area. Now, yes, the European across Europe, immigration's a big problem, and governments are realizing that if they don't do something in immigration, they're going to fall. So you're going to see governments that are a bit more on the centre right, even centre left or centrist. They're now saying we need to sort out some immigration things. So what we saw in the Parliament there was the vote. What's quite interesting is though the biggest party in Northern Ireland, Sinn Féin, who was linked to the IRA, Marxist terrorists, they voted against this because they want to continue the immigration agenda. They're bought into globalist policies, and I think what it will say is across the whole of Europe, we've got globalist organizations, we've got globalist parties that want to push globalist policies on the individual nation. And the Bible doesn't say that other races cannot live in a nation, but it does say that nations exist.
Sure. Yeah.
And it does celebrate nations, and God created those nations, so it's important that those nations continue.
Yeah.
And they're an important. We shouldn't be just subsumed to global Babylonish governance, but we should be subsumed to a civil magistrate who is under God's rule.
Yeah. Amen, brother. That's a great place to end right there. It's funny. I was just gonna say, as you were talking about, traveling back and forth and stuff. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I mean, I've been to many different countries now. We've traveled all over, and literally the most difficult immigration we've had to go through every single time has been leaving Dublin to come back to the States every single time.
Yeah.
And it's weird because for whatever reason you do the immigration there in Dublin before you get to the States. It's the only place internationally we've flown where that's the case. But every single time it's always the worst leaving Dublin to come, and we're like, are you serious? Like, I don't know what it is, but anyways, do you experience that as well? It sounds like.
Yeah, very much so. I was, maybe not say here, but I got an ESTA, and there was a problem with my ESTA, and I was put in a holding for overnight, and so I unfortunately I just messed up an ESTA issue, but no, they were quite robust, and then they realized what the problem was. They realized I wasn't looking into the country but it was just an error. So so then I missed that flight, unfortunately. But then the next time we're over. So, but I think what I've found is that it's a weird thing in that Americans have a lot of Americans have come to me, and a lot of Americans struggle to get into this country. Yet I'm seeing all these people, and somehow they're getting into the country, and they don't seem to have any of those problems.
Yeah.
So it seems to be that legal immigration is more difficult than irregular immigration.
Well, that's what we've been experiencing under the Biden regime. Hopefully that's been fixed. But we've experienced the same sort of thing. So, and what's crazy, and again, I forgive me, I keep rambling on here. We live in Arizona. We're a border state, and we've had during Biden era, we had just people from all over just open right through southern Arizona, through the Mexico border, and thankfully, most of those immigrants did not land here in Arizona. They went elsewhere. It might be because we are all carrying guns. I don't know, but regardless, that's a great place to end. Thank you, brother, so much for your time and for being available last minute. I appreciate it. And let's keep talking. We do want to get back there. Let's keep talking. We'll find a reason. So.
Absolutely, you're very welcome to come on down. And here, if any of you are free next Saturday, Joe Boot's coming down to Castlewell Castle a weekend I'm running, you're very welcome to come down if you can get over the next 9 days.
Yeah, right. So you are connected with Joe then?
Well, I mean, he's speaking at our conference, and I'm friendly with Joe, but
Okay.
I'm not part of the Ezra
No,
Institute.
I understand that. Yeah, Joe's a very, very good friend of mine, and I heard he was going to be in Northern Ireland, and I wanted to connect him with you, but I forgot. So I'm glad that you guys made that connection, because I know he was actually just here a couple weeks ago. I had lunch with him, and we talked a little bit about that. So, anyways, great. I'm glad that's going on. So, just a couple things here. Again, I want to direct everyone to go to shop.apologiastudios.com. You get our tracks, coffee, swag, all the stuff, and of course Heritage Defense. If you homeschool your children, please go to heritagedefense.org, sign up, put apology in the coupon code, get your first month free, and it's a fantastic way to protect yourself against 3-letter agencies if they come knocking on your door. So grateful for all you, for everyone that supports us and supports End Abortion Now. Grateful for Nathan, and Lord willing, we'll be back soon. And to my friends, bye.